It's time for the Cannabis PowWow Show with Trinity the Hempman Mealer. The show where the community comes together to talk all things cannabis. Brought to you by Tennessee Hemp Supply.
Good morning, Joe. How are you doing today?
Hey, thanks, Trinity. Good to be here.
Well, I appreciate you coming by, and thanks so much for your hard work that you've put in here in Tennessee in the hemp industry. One of the authors of the original bill, is that right?
Well, actually, not really. I'm the chief lobbyist for the hemp industry in Tennessee now, but I didn't come into the business until 2015, after the original Farm Bill had already passed. But what we did do in 2016 is that was the first year we made it legal for universities to do research on cannabis up to 0.6% THC, which allowed universities to start doing genetic research, right? And Tennessee Tech was actually part of that original program. They didn't do any research, but MTSU sort of picked up the ball and ran with it.
Right.
But 2017 was, from a legislative standpoint, was the watershed moment, because what happened is we couldn't bring in genetics from other states that had programs. We could only bring them in from overseas. We got that cleared up so we could start bringing in high CBD genetics from Oregon and Colorado. But what we also did, it wasn't entirely clear, and one of the attorneys for the Tennessee Department of Agriculture said, "Hey, Joe, it's not entirely clear that." Well, what is clear is that you can grow hemp, but what's not clear is that the consumer can actually possess it, or the farmer can actually sell it to them. So what we did was we cleared that up, got that passed, and Trinity, we started talking after that.
Sure.
You called me from Georgia, wherever you were living at the time,
dogs.
Yeah, go whatever.
It's football season.
Gag me with a spoon with the dog talk, but. Anyway, as a Vanderbilt alumnus and beleaguered Vanderbilt fan, at least we lived up to expectations and all.
We're the Cannabis PowWow. We're doing a sports talk show later on.
Okay, well, hopefully the Vols will do a little better today.
That really opened up the field, and that allowed all range of products to come about.
It did, and remember I warned you after Operation Candy Crush in March of 2018 that the DAs were going to try to roll that law back from 2017, and they did try, but they failed, and we held them up, and that law was actually upheld in General Sessions Court in Murfreesboro.
Great.
And then sort of Murfreesboro became ground zero for where this business began, where the CBD stores and hemp flower, as we know it, because basically their hands were cuffed for a change.
Sure.
So and we love our law enforcement, and they just want to enforce the law. There was just a lot of confusion.
Well,
back then.
Speaking with you, I chose Rutherford County because of this. Because, like you said, it's ground zero, and where better to go than a municipality and a city that had already kind of fought through the struggle. So they've been nothing but polite and respectful and good to work with in that county and other counties as well. We've had no trouble with legislation. It's been so rewarding to work in this industry and honestly to start to open doors and have more backing in it.
Well, now I did hear that TBI helicopters were buzzing fields over in Livingston.
Sure.
And coming awfully close to people's crops, and I kind of find it ironic, and like I said, law enforcement's coming our way all the time, but that they say they can't tell the difference between hemp and marijuana on the side of the road, yet in a helicopter they felt like they had to come all the way down within 100 feet of the field, and they still can't tell the difference. You can't look at it from the sky and tell the difference. So we're working with law enforcement on that, though, about being respectful, because this time of year when your crops are in bloom, the wind from a helicopter could blow half the trichomes off of a crop.
That's the point I haven't even thought about. It
could do severe damage to crops, and we don't. We appreciate their enthusiasm. We would just ask them to start focusing a little bit more on
non-registered.
Non-registered, and they do have the GPS coordinates of the crops, but let's get meth off the street. Let's get opioids off the street.
This has been a tough year for Tennessee law enforcement because of the smokable flower. And I've always said they've got a really tough job, and be respectful to them and understand that they've got a tough job.
And education barrier.
And you can't tell the difference.
Carry your paperwork. Right. Don't adulterate your containers.
Yeah.
Keep your labeling on. Do those things that would be respectful and cooperate with them. If they go, well, I smell cannabis. Okay, well, yeah, I just bought some hemp from Tennessee Hemp Supply, and I've been smoking a pre-roll here in the car.
And that's why we put our bags the same way we seal all of our products. We staple the receipts to the bag the exact same way, and
we educate the guests.
To law enforcement. That's right. And we educate the guests if they've got a smokable flower to kind of try to keep it in the same packaging till you get home, just in case you do get pulled over.
But the privacy of your home is definitely where to.
I've been talking to you about this, and I'm very excited about this new announcement about the International Hemp Auction and Marketplace. Talk to me a little bit about what's going on with that.
Well, Tennessee is actually, we're calling ourselves sort of the hub or the heartland of hemp, because if you can go back. Tennessee and Kentucky were actually the original hemp growing states, or had the most successful crops prior to Prohibition.
Yes.
So, that's sort of something we take seriously, and Tennessee has seen a 1,300% increase in licensure year over year. I mean, it increases like on the level of Bitcoin prices or something like that. Just nuts.
There's a lot of farmers out there. They're calling me. They're calling other processors who are on the processing list. They're honestly trying to reach out to everybody they can because harvest is coming, and they don't know what to do with their product.
Well, what we're trying to do is bring together players, big and small, from across the continent, not just from Tennessee, but from Kentucky, North Carolina, other states that are growing around here, South Carolina, and then we're also going to be bringing in growers and buyers from Colorado and Oregon.
So this is companies that need the hemp. They need the biomass.
They need the biomass to extract oil, to create their products and things like that.
So you're bringing in businesses from across the country
to set benchmark pricing for hemp and cannabidiol, and this is going to be the largest international hemp auction market to date. We have the guy who live streams the Super Bowl, doing streaming the video for this, and it's going to be fantastic. But you're going to want, if you live here, you're going to want to come out and see it yourself, because not only are we going to be auctioning off hundreds of crops at this, but we're also going to have a sort of wholesale bonanza for CBD products.
You said something like 20% off, right?
Minimum of 20% off of standard retail prices, because we're going to have the manufacturers are going to have booths there. It's going to be, and by the way, it's at the Williamson County Ag Expo in Franklin, Tennessee, which is exactly the same place that the Southern Hemp Expo is being held right now as we speak.
That's right.
It's the venue. The arena there holds 4,200 people, so there's going to be seating to watch the auction. There's going to be over 130 booths, and there's going to be all kinds of farm equipment. And manufacturers of, like I said, a product. So this is not only for hemp growers, it's not only for hemp buyers, but it's also for consumers to come out and go ahead and get their stocking stuffers the week before Black Friday. No, is it going to be educational?
Last year with Tennessee Hemp Supply, we had a lot of people come in and buy gifts for their loved ones for Christmas.
Right, absolutely. You're right. Everybody wants, Grandma needs her, bell buckle body butter, and
and do you need another pair of socks?
Gramps needs a pre-roll,
That's right, or a pair of socks or a 5-pack of pre-rolls.
I think that's a pretty easy choice.
I think so. And if it's not, then we need to have the conversation, and that's something we're encouraging. Is all listeners out there, we'd love for y'all to talk with your family members, have the conversation about cannabis. Talk with your loved ones about the benefits and what you've heard, and hear what they've had to say in their reports from it as well.
Trinity, again, as sort of the person that's looked to for the industry in the state here, what I said originally 3 or 4 years ago is that you're going to be surprised at how much people take to cannabis products that don't get you stoned.
That's right.
And that and Tennessee's a conservative place, but we're not stupid. We know cannabis is a good thing. We know cannabis is good for you, and that we know that Abraham Lincoln and Thomas Jefferson are widely quoted as people who like to toke on hemp when they were relaxing and writing famous speeches and stuff like that, right?
Well, we call some of our repeat guests for flower the kind of hey man wow dudes. You
hey man wow dude.
And the number one reason they say that they turn to our products is because it doesn't get them high.
Well,
they're able to enjoy being reduced inflammation, reduced anxiety, and not be impaired, and they can go about their day. And
exactly.
That's exactly what the leaders of our country were doing at some point. So
exactly, and they appreciated that, and we appreciate that now, and thank God we finally arrived at a place 80 or 90 years after Prohibition that we can start. It's unprecedented, really, how we're starting an industry all over again with all of the data. Gathering ability that we have now, with all the agricultural advancements that we have now, there will never be another thing like it. There will be nothing like it. And if I get, there's a whole piece of environmental remediation, cleaning up our waterways, and things like that we're not really even talking about yet with the fiber crops and components. We're working on a project now to restore the.
Why we started this show is to talk all things cannabis. Well, Joe, let me pause you right there. Let's pause and take a quick break. So don't go away. We'll be right back with more cannabis. And welcome back to the Cannabis PowWow with the Hemp Man. We are here with my co-host Hunter Dude and special guest Joe Kirkpatrick. And 30 minutes is just not enough with you. We're obviously going to have to have you come back. We started this off with some great guests, man. Y'all just have a wealth of knowledge, and we want to expose people to this knowledge, and we want people to understand what cannabis is about and break down the barriers and the things like that. But we were discussing this exciting, especially for farmers and honestly everybody that's interested, the International Hemp Auction and Marketplace.
The International Hemp Auction and Market is a really big deal, and it's hempauctionmarket.com. If you want to look it up on your browser, if you're a grower, it's really important because we've timed it perfectly. It's November 19th, 20th, and 21st. That gives you time to get your crop harvested in October and to get it hung and dried and cured properly.
Please dry it properly, guys.
Please dry it properly. And if you're using a belt dryer or some sort of machine type drying, make sure you don't over dry your material because that's a big risk. I was out at a guy's place yesterday and his stuff was crispy. I mean, they spent over $100,000 on a dryer, and you just make sure if you take it to one of these places that you're like, I don't want this thing on the low end of the moisture. I want it on the high end, like at 12% or 11%, not 8%.
That's kind of a common thing with the farmers I'm talking to. Is they're like, okay, I'm ready to sell the crop. Well, you still have a month.
Oh, the drying and curing is the hardest part, and for all those hanging in tobacco barns, I mean, get a generator and make sure you have air moving through that thing because mold can just, particularly if it's like last year where it opened up and rained all fall.
It was like 18 days straight.
It was crazy, and pray for dry weather. It's better to irrigate cannabis than it is to have it beaten by torrential rain. And if you see that it's gonna come 4 or 5 days in a row, and you're at a good stopping place, go ahead and cut your crop and hang it.
That's right.
And get it out of the field because well, not only that, even if it survives the rain, those trichomes are very, very delicate, and they can be beaten off of your crop, and you could lose 2 or 3 points of CBD, and you could also lose trichomes, and you could lose terpenes, which is what gives your hemp the smell, the beautiful smell that you get. But I do want to talk about this because we're going to be putting our crop up against side by side against those from other states, and we want to represent here in Tennessee. We've got the fastest growing industry in our state globally. But the other piece of this that I think is so important, that this is the first auction of its kind because it directly benefits political action for the hemp industry in this state. And so it's critical that we raise money for legislative action. And what I mean by that is like to reward our legislators and reward their leadership PACs with contributions for helping our industry. And
the way things are done.
the owners of the auction, which is called the Southern Hemp Auction Marketplace, is going to donate a major portion of sales from the International Hemp Auction and Holiday CBD Market to the Tennessee Growers Coalition, which is, I'm transitioning out of my leadership of the nonprofit trade association next month, but to spend my time fully focused on political action and these auctions.
Right.
So,
so for you cannabis lovers out there, you're wanting medical marijuana, you're more familiar with that product, you're not as understanding of what hemp's doing for us, and that's what we're trying to educate. We want to understand all things
parts.
cannabis, and this is part of what we want to
well, and you know, the hemp industry doesn't take a position, positive or negative, on medical marijuana. It's clear, it's very clear that there are some benefits for some classes of patients out there. What those are exactly, we're not sure, but we have to stay. Marijuana's in the left lane, hemp's in the right lane, and you know we're driving the speed limit. So, and if you're in the marijuana lane, I advise driving the speed limit as well. But you know, Tennessee is unique in that we have the most progressive hemp program in the world.
Yes.
Yet we have the most restricted.
You can't even smoke it.
You can't even smoke hemp in Kentucky, right? Well, that's largely because the world's largest tobacco company is headquartered there. And North Carolina has the second largest tobacco company in the world. And I mean, I can start talking about auctions. I mean,
money controls things, that's for sure.
Yeah, lobbies and conspiracy theories and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you know, here's the great thing: we're able now, and in fact, I had this great meeting with the Tennessee's Commissioner of Revenue to talk about the potential taxation of smokable hemp. And now the farmer is going to be exempted from any such action if it passes. However, what we're asking as an industry is if you're going to tax smokable, and that wouldn't include the raw. That wouldn't include the raw flower, because you could eat it. Right, exactly. Right. You can grind it up and eat it. So, but
like
things that are pre-rolls. Are hemp cigarettes like the Bang, BHANG cigarettes that Trinity's carrying for me right now? I'm the Southeast distributor.
That is a very limited marketplace, and those Bang cigarettes, hemperettes, you know,
sticks. Just call them hemp sticks, right?
No tobacco in this at all.
No nicotine, non-addictive.
Filtered. They are actually 4 times.
Stronger than anything else on the market.
And the FDA has not evaluated any of these statements, but as a nicotine cessation product,
strictly off of the COAs.
As a nicotine cessation product, this is amazing. And also, if you
reduces
if you have a problem and you get stoned too much and it gets in the way of your daily activities, this is a great placebo for marijuana as well. I mean, it's a legal alternative to marijuana. And again, okay, so we're talking about the tax. The reason that taxes are so oppressively high on tobacco is because of the burden it places on our healthcare system. So if they want to put a similar tax on hemp, our argument is well, it's neither addictive nor carcinogenic. So what we want is to actually allocate that money. We want to earmark that money, not to go into the general fund of the state to pay for Medicaid, but what we want it to do is to fund research, distressed farmers in distressed counties, and I know there are a lot of them up here on the plateau where the Commissioner of Agriculture can have a grant program.
So many farmers have jumped in here because of the
downturn
and the other piece of this is to help law enforcement buy their roadside testing equipment and things like that, which is very expensive, right?
Very expensive.
These roadside testing kits are very expensive. They come from France, so we want.
There's actually a roadside testing kit that is good within a margin of 1%, and if they would use, best practices or your common sense when they're looking at this and saying, like, there's not a medical marijuana or a street market marijuana that's going to be 1%.
There's no medical marijuana that we really know of that's below 10% THC.
So you could reasonably deduce that this is hemp.
Yes, exactly.
And they have that available. They're just not.
Well, no, the state of Florida has already ordered hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of these, and Tennessee law enforcement needs to do the same, because Florida's program has been patterned after the model we set here, because it's working so well for the farmers and the consumers both. Right. More of a bottom-up approach rather than top-down, and making it so cost-prohibitive that you can't grow it. But also the seizure and forfeiture piece. Now, we know all about asset forfeiture and all that, and we're not saying to law enforcement that we don't think you should take the property of somebody that's got a meth lab in their house. You should take that property, but there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that we're concerned about, where law enforcement is seizing property based on the smell of cannabis. So what we want to do is use that tax to help offset some of that, so we can get some more constitutional seizure and forfeiture laws in this state.
I go back to, it's just so tough on the police officers. They did not.
Yeah, their hands are tied.
The legislation, and part of what you did, has just dumped this in their lap.
And we're also going to try to work. We're also, for the legislative piece before we finish, we're going to try to take care of a drug testing piece and a new protocol where people can use these products with trace amounts of THC in without losing their jobs.
And let the drug testing knows what those.
Exactly right. Right now it's basically pass-fail.
Yes.
So we want to get. We're gonna work with the General Assembly to define a level.
Your body naturally produces an endocannabinoid that is very similar to THC.
And people like you and me, Trinity, who are middle-aged and a little large in the middle, unlike Hunter here, young stick, we store a lot more THC in our fat cells. So that has to be taken. Body mass may take.
If I get THC in my system, it's going to take 6 months to get out of it.
Oh well, yeah, and I have almost as far to go as you do to get it out.
Well, listen, we don't have to bring weight into this. I mean, obviously I carry more weight.
You do carry a lot of weight in this industry.
Well, thank you. That's nice to say, especially from all the work that you've done in this industry. It's going to take us and a whole lot more people like us to continue to develop this industry. Regulation is going to come in.
Years on years.
Lots of changes. We're decades behind on research, and we've got research coming. We're going to have a guest on. Hopefully, we're going to get Dr. Altman on here from Middle Tennessee State soon. He's going to talk about it, and just more things. We'd love to have you back. Maybe
I will come back. We can talk about different subjects, but remember the International Hemp Auction Market.
That website is www.hempauctionmarket.com. That again, www.hempauctionmarket.com. This is the International Hemp Auction Market.
We're going to bring hundreds of buyers from across the continent to purchase your crop. So get signed up for this.
Yeah, if you have any questions, you can contact our store at 615-326-4367. Tennessee Hemp Supply there in Murfreesboro. We'll talk to you about it. We'll give information, and we'll have press releases, and we'll share things on social media. So keep track of that as well. And listen, we just really appreciate you sharing your morning with us here. Go out there and enjoy this Saturday. And thanks for joining us on the Cannabis PowWow. And we hope you learned something. And until next week, get up, get out, and move. And remember, at Tennessee Hemp Supply, we provide Tennessee-grown wellness. This is the Hemp Man signing off, and you're listening to News Talk.